Welcome to Designed for the Creative Mind, a podcast for interior designers and creative entrepreneurs to run their business with purpose, efficiency, and passion. Because while every design is different, the process should remain the same. Prepare yourself for some good conversations with amazing guests, a dash of Jesus, and a touch of the woo-woo, and probably a swear word or two. If you're ready to stop trading your time for money and enjoy your interior design business, you are in the right place. I'm your host, Michelle Lynn.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast, the Design for the Creative Mind business podcast. This is for interior designers and creatives talking about the business side of it. So I'm happy you're here today. I'm excited to introduce Amy. Amy, I've already lost your last name.
It's all good. It's Monroe.
Thank you. Yes, super simple. I'm looking at my notes. I'm like, I've got Amy Monroe. So I met Amy at the Design Biz Retreat. So if you guys are familiar with Rick Campos, he's the host of the Design Biz Survival Guide. He has a podcast of his own. He and I are sweet friends. And Amy was one of his guests at his retreat. So Amy's an expert in all things that sales and use tax.
Yes.
She's been in the space for like 20 years. You wouldn't know it because she looks like she's maybe 30. She's worked in public accounting, private industry, software development. She's been a small business owner, and she currently works for a boutique firm based in Los Angeles and San Diego. She runs the consulting arm of the practice. So in addition to all of this, Amy's been married to her husband, Brian. Oh, I'm married to a Brian also.
Nice.
For almost 20 years. She has 2 teenage boys and loves living where other people vacation. She's in Pacific Beach, California. I'm a little jealous there. So Amy, welcome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And y'all, when I met Amy, she just has this passion for helping for helping others. She's not passionate so much about sales tax is what you described, if I recall correctly, but you're passionate about helping people, and sales tax is your level of it's your expertise.
It's the career I fell into when I was 22 years old.
There you go.
Right.
And now it's just carried you through.
Yeah.
So it really piqued my interest when I heard you speaking. One, because you have such an amazing personality that I wasn't falling asleep talking about financials.
Thank you. I'll take that as high praise.
Very much high praise. And actually, in a previous life, I don't know if I shared this with you. In a previous life, I used to place accounting and financial professionals on a contract or project basis.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, like CPAs and the tax professionals and like CFOs and stuff like that. And so I can truly say that finding a financial professional with a personality such as yours is a rare mix. So
I appreciate that. Yeah. And, sales tax, I think I've never met a single person in my industry that chose it on purpose. And so sometimes I think we benefit a little bit from, and I know I have red hair, but like being kind of the redheaded stepchild of the tax world, right? Like it's super niche. There are maybe 5,000 people in the country who do what I do. And so we are a special breed.
You are a special breed. And just because I have, reddish hair as well, I say that red's not a color, it's an attitude.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
So in regards to the sales and use tax, when I first heard you speak and you broke it down so, let's say easily per se, it was easy for me to understand.
Thank you.
I have just finished, I think it was 2 years ago. It was before I switched over to my now bookkeeping company, but I had gone through a sales tax audit because my previous bookkeeper screwed things up. So
sure.
Why is sales tax so complicated for interior designers? Because it's like, I don't know what I don't know, but I do know that she screwed it up because interior design is so different from so many other industries.
Yeah. And I will totally cut your former bookkeeper, like give him or her some grace, because it is complicated. And the reason for interior designers specifically that it gets complicated is because you're offering a combination of goods and services. And so if you think about this sort of old foundation of sales tax, and you think about kind of Main Street USA, brick and mortar, you walk into your local hardware store and you buy a wrench, right? Like it's pretty clear and obvious who the buyer is, who the seller is, what you're buying, how much you paid for it, and where that transaction took place. And so that's how the rules were made, right? So a lot of a lot of the current sales tax rules are sort of bends and contortions and tweaks of the old way, and that's that's not pretty, but creating new legislation is hard, and so they it's easier for the government to tweak what exists than create something new. And so when you start talking about providing services on top of the sale of goods and different locations depending on your job site and all these different things, it does start to kind of get complex.
So you just touched on something. So I'm in Texas. If I have a job in New Mexico, because actually we do have one right there in Albuquerque right now, we have to adjust our sales tax to accommodate for New Mexico because that's where the goods are being delivered.
Yeah, and that's where the service is being provided, especially if you go on site. And then that added layer of complexity, right? Though, I mean, you're not going to New Mexico necessarily to do the design work. You're going to do that in your office in Texas. And so you can start to have this argument about, well, where did the service actually take place? And so I think, keeping it as simplified as possible, and auditors know you're not going to get it perfect. And to that end, in prep for this, I was reading about an audit appeal in the interior design space, and the auditor got it wrong, right? So just because an auditor says, "Hey, you screwed it up," don't believe them. And that's what people like me are for, because I can step in and go, "You're wrong." But so there is definitely this split between, well, I did all the design work and whatnot, and I talked to my client on the phone, and I did that from my office in Texas. But then if you do fly to New Mexico and you're there when stuff's being delivered, when you're installing draperies, that kind of thing, or if you're shopping locally with that client, then some of that service is provided in New Mexico, and you have to pay attention to that.
So explain to our audience, is that what you do? So if I were to appeal the audit or whatever their findings were, is that where I would call you in and say, Amy, help?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my world, you will find practitioners that kind of do everything kind of soup to nuts, right? Like from the actual filing of the returns and whatnot. I'm not that girl. I'm more of the sort of the creative type. The deadlines and that kind of bit are not my strength. However, if you do get audited, or if you do have a question of, hey, I got this invoice from my vendor and I don't think I should be paying tax, can you help? That's when you call somebody like me. That's my area of expertise and where I spend the bulk of my time.
So if you're in California and I need your help, could you help me if I had questions? Like, 100%. Do you serve the nationwide?
Yes. I work in all states, and it's a little bit different from, say, income tax, right? Because sales tax is so transaction focused. It would be really difficult to be a practitioner that only focuses on one state. By virtue of the fact that I live in Southern California and I have always practiced in Southern California, that's probably where I spend the most time. But my clients, though, I mean, they range from, small companies like yours to conglomerates that, sell software around the world. So I focus on all industries and operate in all states.
Oh, that's good to know. That's really good to know.
Let me interrupt myself to take a quick moment to thank Satinoff Insurance Agency for sponsoring this episode of the Designed for the Creative Mind podcast. Their support and understanding of the interior design, decorating, and home staging industries is unrivaled. Satinoff understands what our businesses do, and they provide insurance that lets me sleep at night. Yep, this is the firm that I use. And they will do the same for your sleep habits and your business too. They're more than an insurance agency. They're an extension of my business. They take care of the worry because they are the experts, which allows me and my team breathing room to do what we do best, design beautiful spaces. You can find their contact information below in the show notes. Give them a call today.
So what are the key things that a business owner like myself or the designers that are listening, what do they need to know? What do we need to know about sales tax? Like, I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah. And so I think the first thing I would tell you is don't be afraid of asking the state, right? Now, as we talked about at the retreat in Palm Springs, if you just call the state, right, to get an answer to a question, and you can't, they'll tell you straight up, like, you cannot rely on advice given over the phone. However, Texas in particular, since that's where you operate, the Texas Comptroller's website is actually one of the best in the country. And if you've got a question, they've got a great search engine. You can pop that in there, get really solid answers and guidance. And they've been good from the get-go, like even in the early stages of online searchability for tax law and whatnot. They used to call it the STAR or something. Anyway, the name of it has changed over time. But the Texas Comptroller website is actually incredibly good. And they are one of, they tax more things than most states, but they're also super friendly and super helpful.
Interesting. Because I've been on that website quite a few times. I don't know what to compare it to. So it's nice to hear that it is one of the better ones.
Yeah. And California is great too. You run into some states that are not helpful at all. Like I'm actually defending an audit in Arkansas right now. And not only will the state not help me, but the state legitimately will not help the auditors. Like we cannot go to the Department of Revenue and get a straight answer on something. It's such a controversial process. Anyway, but Texas is great. So as far as, I don't know what I don't know. Most states have guidebooks that are written for the industry. Texas doesn't really have one for interior design, but it's not as hard as you think it is. And if you just kind of break things down to their fundamental building blocks, if you just kind of focus on one little bit at a time, instead of trying to take the whole thing all at once. And I think as soon as you hear the word tax, people kind of start to freak out a little bit.
Especially creatives.
Yeah. And then, the biggest thing about sales tax, at the end of the day, even though you're the one responsible for collecting it from your client, it should not be an out-of-pocket expense to you, right? If you're doing it well, then yes, there is a small cost to comply, but at the end of the day, you're basically just an agent on behalf of the tax authority. You're taking the tax dollars from the consumer, your client, and passing that along to the state. So hopefully it doesn't impact your bottom line.
Right. And that is key. It's basically a pass-through. It's a wash.
Yes.
Now, I think where we got a little bit sticky and something I learned not well enough to teach it, because I'm going to ask you the question, is tax applied, sales tax applied when the goods hit the dock of the receiver or when the goods are delivered to the client? So the receiving warehouse, we take possession of it, or when we drop it off at the client's house.
So,
or does it vary by state?
It not as much varies by state. And I don't want to get into the weeds too much, but sometimes your contract is written can drive that. And what we talk about is when does title transfer and who bears the risk of loss?
There we go. Okay.
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. And to keep it simple, when title transfers to your client, to your customer, that's basically when sales tax is triggered.
Gotcha. And that's super helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is just 30,000 foot view. If you guys get twisted into something, that's when you can call Amy Monroe.
Right.
So in regards to business owners, designers, what are some of the biggest or most common mistakes that you see?
So in general, like irrespective of industry, so taking this outside of the interior design world and just talking about businesses in general, not separately accounting for things like taxes, not managing your cash flow, and collecting tax and then not remitting it to the tax authority is the number one biggest no-no. But as a small business owner, especially when you're first starting out, it can be so tempting, right? You issue that invoice, it's $10,000 plus 10% tax. You need that, extra $1,000 to cover your bills. You're thinking, oh, well, the taxes aren't due to the end of the quarter. I'll worry about that later. The quarter comes, you've got this tax bill and you're like, crap, I don't have $1,000. So that's probably, as a small business owner and sort of managing your finances, that's one of the biggest pitfalls.
Yes, that gives me flashbacks to when I was starting my business. It was totally the cash flow.
Yeah. So separately accounting for that, and honestly, kind of like they teach you when you're younger and they're like, take your savings out of your paycheck. Like, don't even have your employer like direct deposit that savings into your savings account so that you never see it. You're not the one responsible for transferring it. Honestly, I highly recommend having a completely separate or at least a sub bank account for taxes. And similar to if you're, in business for yourself, you're going to set aside a percentage of your gross income for income taxes for quarterly and annual payments anyway, right? Do the same thing with sales tax. Just set it aside. Don't even know that it's there.
Yes, I think that was a big deal. I created what I called a prepaid account. And now I'm digging more into Profit First. We had Suzanne Moringa on here.
Nice.
Recently, talking about Profit First and what a different mentality that is to just have different buckets for your different buckets of income. And it's not income, but it still passes through your bank account.
Yeah. And then bringing it back to interior design, which obviously is what we're here to talk about. I'd say the biggest sort of complexity for you guys, no matter what state you're in, is the bundling of your services and offerings into like a flat fee.
Okay. We talked about that a little bit when we were in Palm Springs. Can you elaborate on that a bit? Because that's my big push is a flat fee, design fee.
Yeah. So, I mean, when it's just design fees, you're fine, right? Like interior design services in Texas aren't taxable. And honestly, with the exception of like 7 states, I think interior design services are not taxable on their face. It's when you start combining your labor charges, your service charges, your creativity and whatnot, when it's inextricably attached to tangible personal property, which is things you can touch, see, and feel. So like that bookcase behind you, right? So if you were helping your client select that bookcase, right? So sometimes, although Texas is more friendly than California, but depending on how you bill for procuring that piece of furniture can make that procurement piece of your service either taxable or not.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the goods themselves are always taxable, right? The furniture is always taxable. But then how you bill your client for it will determine whether or not your procurement on their behalf of that item, whether or not that is a taxable service. And that's where things get the messiest for y'all.
That would get hairy.
Yeah.
That would get
and then
hairy.
Installation too. Hanging drapes at your client's site, that kind of deal. That can, depending on the state, and then depending on how you bill for it, sometimes that's taxable or not.
And then, if I recall correctly, one of the things that I took away from your presentation at the Design Biz Retreat, which, by the way, y'all, I follow Rick Campos at the Design Biz Survival Guide. I know he's going to have another retreat next year, and he's just a really good wealth of information. So
and the retreat itself, just the vibe of the retreat was amazing.
Yeah, it's a class act. So one of the things I remember taking away is I think you said, when you have your installers, they should be billing the client directly so that it doesn't come through your.
Yeah, anytime you can sub that out and have your sub bill your client directly, you're better off from a sales tax management point of view, for sure.
Okay, and why is that?
Because it makes it their problem and not yours.
Perfect. Okay, good. Yes.
I hate to say it that way, but it's the truth. So,
as small business owners, especially if we're a solopreneur, there's so much to manage anyway. If you can just hand it off, it doesn't make it any more or less difficult for your client. It's not necessarily going to be a value add as a service provider. Right. If you just have your workroom or your art installer or whatever, bill them directly.
Yeah, that's always the easiest thing.
I love that.
Y'all, this podcast episode was made possible in part by Foyer, a lightning fast interior design software that creates photorealistic renderings. I'm not kidding. You can barely tell that it's not a real room. So why leave your beautiful designs up to the imagination of your client when you can show them what their space is going to look like? You will sign more clients and get more approvals with this software. It's powered by artificial intelligence, and I'll vouch for its ease because if I can do it, anybody can, because y'all know that my design team are the ones who do all the work. Find them in the show notes.
So sales and use tax, we could probably spend another hour talking about just all the nuances, But I think what I want to
Sure.
leave our audience with is that there are individuals like Amy out there if you guys get stuck or need some help. I'm going to have Amy's information in I'll have you mention it, and then we'll have it in the notes, the show notes as
Sure.
well. But that's what I really want to leave the audience with. I didn't know people like you existed. I just thought it was either my bookkeeper or my tax professional, but I knew that sales and use tax is different than my income tax. So having somebody like Amy available, just knowing she's there, if you come across a sticky situation, there's an advocate for you. So
Yeah.
that's just such a relief.
Well, I appreciate
Your
that.
gray
Yeah.
hairs. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So now y'all know I love to talk about all things business, but I also like to have a little bit of fun. And Amy, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this. Our next segment is a rapid fire Q&A.
Okay.
Nothing's off the table.
Awesome. Okay.
Just for fun so that the audience can get to know you a little bit better. And me too, because I always love talking to my peeps. All right. So we're going to softball, start easy, left or right-handed?
I am almost 100% ambi, but right hand dominant.
Shut up.
Yeah, for
Really?
real. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh. It sounds so terrible to say. At home I eat a lot of Neapolitan, but really I love vanilla because it's like the possibilities are endless with what you can do with it next, right?
Oh, dreaming about the options.
Yeah, but
and especially a good
favorite
vanilla.
Butter pecan.
I think that was everybody's favorite.
Yeah.
Right? I remember they used to come in
got
those.
The salty and the crunchy and the sweet. Like it's kind of got all the goodness in it, right?
And the texture. Yeah, absolutely. Dream travel destination.
Oh, anything with like warm, clear blue tropical waters.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't suck. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Innie belly button or outie belly button?
Prior to giving birth to my second child, it was innie. I had a navel ring and the whole deal, and he totally destroyed it, but that's okay. I love him anyway.
We're gonna keep them. Gonna keep them. Chocolate chip or oatmeal cookies?
Oh, oatmeal.
Yeah, I love me a good oatmeal cookie dough.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have a consistent morning routine?
Oh, I want to say yes, but no.
We never would have known. We would have never known otherwise. Who's your favorite superhero?
I don't. Wow. That's a terrible fit. Deadpool.
I never saw that one, but I heard that was terrible.
That's an awful. No, I mean, I love a good like Wonder Woman, of course. Who doesn't?
No, I'd love to see Deadpool though, because there was so much talk about it.
And honestly, though, I'm not sure if it's Deadpool or Ryan Reynolds. Let's be real.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay.
He's just so funny.
Yeah, and he doesn't hurt the eyeballs.
No, and the name's escaping me. He's got a new movie out right now that basically, if you have teenagers who do any level of gaming and you understand that world at all, it's called Free Guy. It is hysterical. I've seen it twice.
Really?
So good. Anyway, but I just love Ryan Reynolds. Sorry. I love my husband too, but I love Ryan Reynolds.
Everybody should have that
right? That one. Movie. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. What did you want to be when you were growing up?
An architect.
Interesting.
Yeah. And before that, a fighter pilot.
Oh, fun. I can see that.
Yeah. And then I was in junior ROTC in high school for a hot minute, discovered I can't take orders. And so the whole fighter pilot thing went out the door.
Yeah. That's true.
So, yeah.
Awesome. What is your favorite form of ice cream? What is your favorite form of exercise?
Oh, I love lifting heavy shit.
No joke. Me too.
Yeah. Give me a good deadlift on any day.
That's hilarious. I have a t-shirt. It says, I just want to love Jesus, drink coffee, and lift heavy things.
Yes. 100%. Yes. I love lifting. I don't know if it's a woman thing or what, but like nothing makes me feel stronger than just lifting really heavy stuff.
Yeah. I have a 3-year-old daughter that now counts as that.
There you go. Yeah, no, I was so like the first day I like deadlifted my own body weight. I was like, woohoo, and I mean, I've exceeded that now, but yeah, no, there's something so empowering about it.
Amazing. I totally agree. I love hearing that. All right. If you could have dinner, here's the last one. Well, no, introvert or extrovert?
Oh, high E, off the charts.
That doesn't surprise me.
I'm like, you knew that though.
Yeah. Well, yes, I think so, just with your energy, but I'm a very big introvert. So it's hard to judge when it's a small crowd.
Yeah, that's for sure. I have, so my husband calls them my cocoon days. I have about 3 days a month. It's usually kind of cyclical if we're honest, but like where I don't want to be around anybody, like including him or my kids, like give me a blanket, a cup of tea, even though I'm coffee, not tea, and my cat and a good book. Like that's like the only interaction I want for like 3 days a month. But other than that, I'm off the charts extroverted.
Well, there you go. It's just refueling you.
Yeah.
All right. So if you could have dinner with anybody, dead or alive, who's the one person you would invite to dinner?
Anais Nin.
Oh, the author?
Yeah.
Why? I'm not as familiar.
Oh gosh. That woman embodied and understood feminism and female just empowerment and strength before those words even existed.
Interesting.
She just blows my mind. My mind.
I will totally have to dig into that a little bit more. I didn't even know how to pronounce her name.
And I might have gotten it wrong.
Oh no, I'm sure you did.
But she just blows my mind. Yeah.
Perfect. I'm writing this down. Good to know. Thank you so much. Amy, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So appreciate it. And I know our audience has loved everything you've shared because this is such a unique and very specific little niche of business.
It is. And I hope that it's helpful. I try really hard in conversations like this to not get too lost in the weeds, I'm such a tax nerd and I've been like living and breathing this for over 20 years. And so sometimes it's hard for me to keep it high level enough, but my goal is to make you feel better about it, not make you panic. So, so I hope that we've accomplished a little bit of that today, but anytime any of your people have questions, feel free to just, drop me a DM or hit me up an email or whatever.
Well, speaking of which, how can they find you?
Yeah. So I have social media, but not necessarily for like my sales tax business. You can find me on Instagram. I am Amy Monroe, and you can always DM me there. And then you can find me for business purposes. My email is my first name, Amy, @Satar Inc. And you can put it in the show notes. Satar is the firm that I work with primarily. So
how do you spell Satar?
SATTAR. And then
just like
inc.com. Yep, just like it sounds. And first call is always free, and I'm happy to help.
Oh, that is awesome. And like I said, if I had even known people like you existed years ago, that whole process would have just been nice to know that somebody else had my back. Thankfully, I got a really good auditor for Texas. So I will make sure that information is listed into the show notes. And for those of you who can benefit from even more resources surrounding the business of running your interior design business, join the growing community in my Facebook's private group. And yeah, I know it's Facebook, but it's a really cool group. It's called the Interior Designers Business Launchpad. I get people saying, I'm not on Facebook, Michelle. I'm just like, create a ninja profile and come on in because I train once a week, just a quick 10 to 15 minutes. And the community itself is amazing. And it's all centered around business. So come join us there. And finally, don't forget to leave a review anywhere you're catching this podcast. It really does help keep us relevant, and I really appreciate it. So, Amy Monroe, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Michelle. I really had a great time. I appreciate it.
Hey, y'all. If you love the show and find it useful, I would really appreciate it if you would share with your friends and followers. And if you like what you're hearing, want to put a face with a name, and get even more business advice, then join me in my Facebook group, the Interior Designers Business Launchpad. Yeah, I know, it's Facebook. But just come on in for the training and then leave without scrolling your feed. It's fun, I promise you'll enjoy it. And finally, I hear it's good for business to get ratings on your podcasts, so please drop yours on whatever platform you use to listen to this. We're all about community over competition, so let's work on elevating our industry one designer at a time. See you next time.